Hey, all my Aries friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today to talk directly to Aries about the shift of Saturn into Pisces and Aquarius into Pluto. These are dramatic shifts, in my personal opinion. I think they offer a lot of opportunities. Some of those opportunities will be disguised under the veil of disruption. And I wanted to go by each sign and talk directly about the houses this is going to affect and give you an opportunity to really key into the higher vibrations of these two planets, which I personally think offer an amazing amount of reward and abundance. But oftentimes, the human structure that we have built our abundance on, our security on, is not always in balance or for our highest and greatest good. So these planets kind of take that theme, is this for your highest and greatest good, and examine it more closely. So let's talk a little bit about Saturn. Saturn by nature rules endurance, tenacity, determination. It's kind of considered an unemotional planet because it's not really invested in whether you're happy, as much as once you've committed to something, it wants you to be disciplined, it wants you to be thorough, it wants you to be committed, it wants you to be enduring beyond your own emotional comfort. And Saturn has been in its two signs that it rules. First, it was in Capricorn, and then it was in Aquarius, where it co-rules. So now that was the last maybe 4.5, 5 years. So there's been a strong influence of Saturn. Oftentimes, from the human perception, Saturn seems depressing and stokes our fears. And I think this is why I was inspired to do this video, because Pluto also can stoke our fears. And yet, if we are willing to look at those fears, oftentimes they're the very seeds for our own exhilaration, achievement, power, and our own creation. And yet at the same time, these planets are going to offer us an opportunity to really examine what is our authentic truth, and are we basing our decisions on potential or what is realistic. And when I say realistic, as an intuitive astrologer, that realism comes from my belief and how deep that belief is. Because when we sit in a fake it till you make it energy, it can actually put us into a lot of opportunities to overcome obstacles versus an easier path. So Saturn moving into Pisces, which is Aries' 12th house, there's going to be a real, I believe, for Aries, an opportunity to master yourself as the peaceful warrior. Oftentimes, Aries is called, aggressive, assertive, brash, the lone soldier a bit. And here I believe that with Mars, your ruling planet, having been in Gemini for 7 months between, the fall of 2022 into March, right before Pluto goes into Aquarius, Mars will be moving into Cancer. And while we're not focusing in on that right now, I believe that Mars's 7-month stint really had us looking, I'm an Aries rising, at how do I think? How do I communicate? What am I saturating myself in? And is that, am I responding in a way where I'm considering how I'm landing on someone else, or am I just blowing through the situation with frustration and anger? And this is a real opportunity, as we've walked through that, to examine ourselves in an authentic way without criticism or judgment, because it doesn't do any good to criticize. It just plays to the lower vibrations of Saturn, more defeat, more depression, more feeling oppressed. So I believe that this move into Pisces is going to feel dramatically different, because Saturn is going into a water sign, and it's most comfortable in earth and air, and into a sign that represents a spiritual awakening through what appears to be the loss of human structure that didn't actually serve us. Pisces rules a lot of things. You know, the first thing we think of is spirituality, which I think can be defined in many ways, depending upon, you know, where you've been raised and your environmental influences and your own personal soul's evolution. Pisces is considered imaginative and dreamy and creative, and also is the realm of deceit and illusion and fog. It's a house of health. It's where we see the body being released so that the soul can go back into the collective. It is this house that naturally rules history, as does Saturn. So I'm perceiving this opportunity of Saturn moving into Pisces, rather than feeling like this huge wet blanket or cold shower has been thrust upon me, is for me as an Aries rising to really take my 12th house energy and to, I was going to say break karmic ties. And then I wanted to shift that to extracting the wisdom of my perpetual choices, what I appear are karmic links and experiences. Saturn will be at the anaretic degree. Where are my notes? Hold on, I've got notes all over the place here. Oh my goodness. Let me look real quick. There it is. Saturn will be at the anaretic degree, which is a very powerful degree, the 29th degree. It's the Leo degree. It's also the degree that reduces down to the master number 11 in Aquarius, an air sign, from February 28th until it moves into Pisces on March 7th. So this little over a week is going to give an opportunity to really master and be aware of my historic karmic patterns, how I want to innovate my thoughts moving forward. Are my thoughts and my actions aligned to engaging the group, engaging my network into my vision? Because most of the time Mars is depicted as going its own way and not being the greatest team player. And at the same time, Mars rules warriors who are team players, military heroes, sports figures who work in team members. So we really get to start to redefine Mars from a higher vibration, okay? And then the 12th house by nature is a house of meditation. It's also a house where we sequester people. It rules institutions, it rules mental hospitals, it rules places where we're alone, old age homes, research laboratories. There's a lot of kind of cooperative energy with the 12th house, Saturn and Pisces, but I don't think it's obvious, because Saturn, we just think of as so, more disciplined and follow the rules and the regulations. And we think of Pisces as dissolving in some ways and being absorbed. And if we take that deeper look, we as a conscious human, aware of our soul's continual evolution, and that we really don't ever die, as much as we shed a skin that we have, used to its fullest, and it's time to move on to a new experience. It's also an opportunity to be aware of any victimhood. The 12th house rules prisons. It rules places we don't feel seen. It's behind the first house, and it's just it is really a house that I think the reason it's so powerful is because it's very cooperative with the Plutonian energy in the 8th house of demanding a authentic look at what the truth of our needs, our wants, our desires are. Pisces is a mutable sign by nature. And I think sometimes we, rather than being deceived by others, we can deceive ourselves, again, by basing our decisions on the potentials that haven't really revealed themselves. And Saturn will not agree with that. Saturn will be removing those potentials and will be really requiring Aries to be aware of how you're showing up, be authentic, and be willing to own your vibration, whether it be brash or be habitual or patterned. And just within the awareness of that, it's not about criticism or feeling defeated, but willing to walk through that and adjust, or as I like to say, shift to the higher vibration. I think this is a very, very powerful time. Let's talk about some dates. As Saturn is at those late degrees of Aquarius, it's really going to tee up. I mean, I would not be surprised if we feel on a very palatable level the shift within a day or so of Saturn moving into Pisces. It's only going to stay in, well, it's staying in Pisces until 2026, but it's only going to traverse the 0 to 7 degrees in 2023. It's going to retrograde back. It's going to start a retrograde on June 17th and will be retrograde going all the way back to the 0 degree. And then it will move forward again through Pisces until 2026. Now, the thing I think is so pivotal about Saturn moving 0 to 7 degrees in your 12th house is that we are in a 7-year. The 7-year has a Libra vibration. Saturn is exalted in Libra. This is a vibration of intellectual introspection, not judgment, not criticism, but rather really weighing the pros and the cons of how you as Aries rising moon or sun want to assert yourself out into the world and to really be able to engage others into your vision and feel those higher vibrations of the hero, the courage, the bravery, the pioneering spirit, the passion that Aries has. Now, let me do a quick look. What else if I wanted to say about any of Saturn and Pisces? Saturn does reward, by the way, and Saturn being at the 29th degree of Aquarius, the sign of innovation, the sign that rules your 11th house of hopes and dreams. It's also a money house. This is really an opportunity because when you were in Gemini, there you are in an air sign. And as Mars was going back and forth, and Mars is still in Gemini right now, you're still getting to see how your thoughts, how your speech, how your, way of being is showing up on other people, and you can fine tune that rather than defaulting back to energies of being a little bit pushy. Saturn by nature is going to rule our history. So whatever history you have of not feeling seen, of not feeling heard, feeling invisible for your efforts will come up with Saturn in Pisces. It also will offer you material wealth as you address those things, because if you're in a space where you're willing to say, do I see myself? Am I giving myself credit, Aries? Am I proud of me? Or am I moving so quickly that once I've overcome one obstacle or one emotional issue or one historic pattern, I'm on to the next before I really bask in all the hard work and accomplishment? It's important for Mars to recognize, Mars-ruled people to recognize that you move so fast sometimes that you don't take in your reward. And that's not Saturn's fault. And it's not necessarily Mars's fault, but it is Mars unconscious. So as we become more conscious, we can take that moment to really celebrate our victories. Oh, the other thing that I want to mention for for my Aries is the 12th house naturally rules hospitals. It rules viruses and the transmutable diseases like STDs. It rules the fluids of the body. And also it rules, your mental health and escapism. It rules drug abuse and alcoholism. So if you're not taking care of your body, if you're escaping in some way, if your frustration and anger is leading you to mask through drugs, alcohol, sex, Saturn is going to come in and have a conversation about that with you. And it's going to be a really one-sided conversation because Saturn's not going to really listen to your, I don't want to say excuses, but, when this is where it feels hard for the human. This is why Saturn feels rough, because Saturn's not going to buy into any emotional defeat you feel or emotional bad habits. Saturn's going to say, step up your game, and we can get to the reward that you so richly deserve. So by nature, we have the 12th house ruling dissolution of the individual as we go reemerge back into the collective. This is an opportunity to weave in our heart and soul awareness into our experiences and to really start to give life to the idea that when you withdraw or you feel isolated, it is because you have chosen time for yourself versus feeling as if someone has put you in that space. I think that this is going to be a time where Aries is challenged on some level by Saturn to own where you've taken any past stories into your present moment and based your future upon them. And if you have felt directionless or overwhelmed, or if you've felt as if you can't get past your story, Saturn is going to say, be in the present moment. And what you learned about yourself when Saturn was in the 11th house, this opportunity to be innovative, Saturn's going to want you to implement it into your spiritual mastery, into your spiritual awareness, and therefore be accountable for it. The challenges here are, again, addiction, victimhood, lack of identity, directionlessness, feeling insignificant, and feeling absorbed in some way by a story that's bigger than you, that leaves you unseen. The opportunities are to be empathetic and to be more compassionate with those that are not vibrationally aligned to you or frequency aligned to you. Think of them as different notes on a keyboard. Potentially some just don't resonate together, and as you become more aware of the sharp notes or the sharp people in your life, you can use them as a point of reference rather than stoking an old story. Okay. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, for those of you that have Saturn in Pisces, this is going to be your Saturn return. So if you're around 29 to 30 years old, this is going to be your first time around. And if you are 58 to 60, maybe 61, stretching it, this is going to be your second time around. I have already been through 2 Saturn returns. And as I've surrendered to some of my habitual frustrations, I have found that I can actually have more ease and joy during times when I feel like there's no physical movement that I can see with my eyes. So I think this is a real extra opportunity for those having their Saturn returns to master their spirituality and to be really brave about your willingness to be accountable for where you may escape. And the escape may not be in drugs and alcohol, but in your victimhood or in your anger or in your frustration. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about Pluto entering your 11th house. And then I'm going to go through some dates that I think are significant for the springtime before we get into the thick of 2023. Pluto will be at 29 degrees Capricorn from February 11th through March 22nd, when it will move into Aquarius and be in Aquarius for a very short period of time before it retrogrades back into Capricorn. So this is going to be a real dismantling of structures that have decayed, that have historic they're obsolete in some ways. And I want to offer it this way, because for Aries, this is going to be in your 11th house. And this is going to be, we're going to go through this retrograde, and then the beginning of 2024, Pluto is going to move into Aquarius for 20 years. So I really believe that this is going to present an opportunity for you to feel seen in a way that you've never felt seen before. The 11th house naturally rules large networks. It rules the nervous system. It rules our hopes and our dreams. It rules the collective consciousness. And when you take the bravery and the courage and the heroic energy that Mars is, then Aries has a real opportunity to influence others and themselves in a way that shows the transformation that you've been through, the things that you have discovered about yourself through Saturn's transit through Pisces, because once Saturn's gone through Pisces, it will then go into your first house. So this transits, these two particular transits, as we start to feel them here in 2023, and we're in this 7-year of introspection through an intellectual, balanced way. I believe that 7 energy is really about knowing that the dark serves the light and the light serves the dark, and that the soul comes to this human experience for the contrast, for the opportunity to make choices from an inner knowing. So it's this combination of living a spiritual but yet magical experience of the soul within the physical apparatus. It's really very amazing. So let's so that 29th degree is going to be an opportunity to master your willingness to look at the structures that you have built your thought process on. Pluto is your co-ruler on some level. You co-rule, Mars co-rules Scorpio. So I believe that Mars is willing to transform. I believe that Mars is not really an energy that just goes in and pillages and is so self-aware, or I should say self-absorbed, that they don't have a self-awareness. I think this is the misnomer. And this is why I'm so passionate about this intuitive astrology, because when I talk to the planets, when I talk to source energy about the dynamics and the transits, these are the things they reveal to me. And the human naturally goes to the dark side. Every single astrologer that I listen to, that I've come across, really operates from that very human perception. We're trained. And this is where Saturn coming into Pisces gets to break that up. And Pluto entering Aquarius offers us innovation in ways that allows our soul and our minds and the physical apparatus to catch up with technology. So Pluto by nature rules death and decay. First thing everybody says, and I believe that is because the caterpillar, while it's walking on that small twig, has such little sight of its true potentials. And as it goes into that evolutionary process where it literally ingests itself down to the core of its spine before becoming and evolving into the butterfly, that's who we are. And as Pluto enters Aquarius, it's going to allow Aries to get a glimpse of their new renovated self and to be able to stretch that renovation out into ways that you can't imagine right now. And so it's time to dream big. And I want to offer it this way, because I have had Pluto transits conjunct my personal planets my whole life. Now I've been going through a series of squares with them, and I didn't die and I didn't get sick. I did, however, have to confront some parts of myself that were not working for me, where I had to really, or got to get to continually look at where I inadvertently have habits of thought that put me in a place where I'm not seen, or where I'm not valued, or where I feel easily thrown away. And so this would be somewhere where Pluto here offers you an opportunity to really look deep into your own psychological patterns, and then to use the tools of the quote unquote occult to realign yourself. I don't believe that the occult is dark. I believe what the occult is tools that God, the angels, that source energy put on this planet so that we would remember who we really were. And then we would engage these tools while we were under the veil of darkness. Astrology being a huge tool. What does the 11th house rule? Astrology. And so does Pluto being in the 8th house. 8th house rules occult. So we can throw astrology in there. So I think that this is a really, really powerful time right now when we first feel these energies dip their toe into these houses. And I want to offer it this way, because when you think about Aries, Aries is the very first house of the zodiac and begins the hero's journey through the zodiac. So the focus of these two planets, Saturn being, what I kind of consider a personal planet, but mid-range, because of the 2-year cycle. And then Pluto being very much a personal yet generational planet. So we have this 20-year opportunity to really look at ourselves and how we are showing up in the collective. Are we showing up in a way that we would want others to show up for us? Acceptance, allowing for, diversity and many different perceptions and perspectives on how to create happiness. I think that's important. So let me talk about the dates that Pluto will enter Aquarius. Will be on March 23rd, 2023. And then within a very short period of time, on May 1st, it will retrograde. It will not leave the 0 degree of Aquarius. So this is powerful. It's the critical degree of any sign, that real purity, that infusion of this energy. And it's going to feel like Pluto rules the underworld and Aquarius rules the stars. So there's a bit of a bright light feeling like it's being shown here. Pluto will re-enter Capricorn on June 11th and stay retrograde. I think it goes back to the 27th degree before going direct again in October. And it will finally re-enter Aquarius on January 21st, 2024 and stay there for 44 years. I'm sorry, till 2044, 20 years. And in 2023, Pluto will traverse 0 degrees Aquarius to 27 degrees Capricorn. So I say so a lot, I apologize. Anything you have in that range, so you're going to look at any of the cardinal signs, will be important. I happen to have a 27 degree Libra, Mars in Libra. So this square affects me. I have a 26 degree Aries ascendant. So I've been feeling Pluto for quite some time, as well as a 23 degree Libra sun. All of these squares, I mean, when astrologers first were chatting with me, when I first started to re-engage studying astrology, they were like, how are you feeling? Oh my God, you're how old? And they all I got to tell you, they scared me a little bit about, me dropping dead. And then when I started to really connect with my intuitive astrology and started to see these planets from a way, how do they want to help me? They don't want to tank me. That didn't make any sense to me. It's not fair, my Libra sun. And so I came to understand that these squares for me, Pluto squaring me now was a tense moment between an old pattern of myself and then a new, yet not completely fully skilled way of integrating my soul's intention and my awareness and accountability for my co-creation. And the more I became aware of that square, the more the new innovative part of me started to make my decisions, which is where Pluto creates billionaires. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not even a hundredaire, but I am aware. And in doing so, I can bring in so much more abundance and really capitalize on this energy to bring my hopes and my dreams into my reality. All right, so that's the aspects. Let's talk about how some of the pivotal dates over the springtime for Aries. Again, I'm doing it this Saturn-Pluto combination because I want to give you an opportunity to be really intentional about how you walk through the next few moons. We're going to have eclipses coming up this spring, and I believe that there's going to be, in some level, a polarization of experiences. And those that are aware and intentional and accountable and willing to actually look at, okay, Saturn in Pisces is asking me to let go of potential, but to really put my boots to the ground and make stuff happen. And how do you make stuff happen? By first examining, what do you believe about those boots on the ground? Are they viable? Will they take you where you need to go? Because if not, change your boots. Because you don't want to wear big old nasty, hiking boots in the Sahara Desert where your feet will get too hot. And you don't want to wear, little flimsy boots in the snow where your feet will freeze off. So knowing the landscape, Saturn, and then getting the appropriate tools to continue your journey. And I say continue. So Aries rising. First thing we're going to talk about is we will have Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces in your 12th house for about 8 days. It'll go into Pisces on the 7th. This is Pacific time. I haven't said that yet. And then, so you're going to take advantage of this 0 degree, because again, this is really an opportunity to look deep into your Piscean energy. What do you want to create? Where is your imagination taking you? Dancers, poetry, people who write poetry, people who are involved in the ballet, music, artistry, any kind of creativity, filmography, photography. This is a beautiful time to really start to allow yourself to put some structure into your creative process. And even if you don't know what that, how you'll act out your creative process, maybe it's just giving yourself a day. Okay, on Mondays, I'm going to film my creative blah, blah, blahs, whatever it is, looking at how can I put something solid and material into my schedule, and how do I want to make that consistent? Because realistic goals is what Saturn's going to want. On the 23rd, Pluto will go 0 degrees. Pluto will be 0 degrees Aquarius in your 11th house and will stay at 0 degrees Aquarius until June 11th, when it moves back into Capricorn. So that's super powerful and important. Again, that 0 degree, this is the purest, the most, it's like the baby just being born out of the womb. The energy is super powerful, and it's pivotal and critical because it's setting a tone and a pace for the house experience. On the 19th of April at 9:32 p.m. Pacific time, we will have a solar eclipse in your first house on the cusp of your second house. It's technically at 29 degrees, 50 minutes Aries. A lot of astrologers would push that to 0 degrees. I would, but this is a very powerful eclipse, because I believe that this is really where you're going to be setting that, how do I myself want to own what it is that I want to experience, and really dig that into I guess what I want to say is setting, here I'm talking about Saturn, asking for structure. And here we're having this solar eclipse that I think is going to want to see that structure realized, operated, massaged, and utilized, because it's on the cusp of your second house, which is a money house. And Pluto's moving into your 11th house, which is a money house. So I think that Aries has a real opportunity for individuality and entrepreneurship, but being brave in being willing to look at where your frustrations to move forward are sometimes not working for you, because spirit is actually moving things around that you can't see. That would be another thing going on in your 12th house with Saturn and Pisces. On the 1st of May, Pluto goes retrograde at 0 degrees in your 11th house, and it's going to be making a square to the nodes. Pluto has been making a square to the nodes as the nodes are creeping up on the early degrees of the Taurus Scorpio axis. So this is sort of another theme. The nodes are karmic points. Pisces is a karmic point. Saturn rules history. All of this is about really being aware of patterns and looking. The South Node for me, here we go. South Node is about loss. Pisces is supposedly about loss. I don't really think of it as loss. I think of it as about being egoless to the structures that I think are really safe and secure, and they're not. I had a relationship with somebody who was an absolute emotional wall. I mean, he was not available. He was like a cinder block wall, stiff. He couldn't enjoy any musical concerts. Everything we did was like dry, like a saltine cracker. And I kept pushing for that relationship because I had turned a certain age. And when I got real about that after 3 years, I realized that this was me demoing myself and putting myself in a place of less than. And this is the kind of energy that's going on, where we're really going to have to, I hate to say have to, where we really get to look at some things in our lives and decide if they're really fruitful. Are they really making me happy? Because Pluto squaring the nodes is going to bring this up. And whenever Pluto goes forward and then retrogrades and then goes back again, we're going to see this happen 3 times. And this is going to be slow. It's going to remind us over and over again. And Pluto squaring the South Node in its sign of rulership, Scorpio, digging deep, excavating to the bottom of the pit of our unconsciousness and bringing that forward, not for judgment, but for renewal and rebirth. On the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse at 14 degrees Scorpio in your 8th house. And this is going to trigger the eclipses from 2022. You might want to look where that is in your chart. And also at the same time, the sun, we know that a lunar eclipse is an opposition from the sun and the moon on a full moon. The sun is at 14 degrees Taurus, exact conjunction to Uranus, which rules your 11th house. So this could really actually, now we get to think Scorpio rules billionaires. It rules good money. And, we think of it as other people's money, but it's not just inheritances, it's often clients. So this could really start to bring in new energy for you, because Taurus is your 2nd house. As you use your skills bravely and consciously, you can really start to move the story forward. And while a full moon usually represents the ending of a cycle, I think of them as one coin, 2 sides. Every ending is a new beginning. And this could be the ending of feeling a lack of resources or not feeling a flow of money. I like to use the word resources. And now we can start to see something moving forward. And when I say forward, I mean throughout this whole Saturn-Pluto transit. So we're going to see little pebbles leading us down a path of abundance as we are aware to look. Okay, on the 16th of May, Pluto retrograde, again, 0 degrees Aquarius in your 11th house, will be squaring. Jupiter has just moved into Taurus. I think this is going to be, well, the square can be a little tense. It's also, Jupiter will be conjunct the North Node, which has been in Taurus for quite some time. this square to me is really examining my beliefs. And in Taurus, it's like, am I being too stubborn? Am I being too unyielding? Am I willing to be more flexible? Am I willing to apply myself? Taurus also rules my family history. This is a big theme coming up with Saturn being in Pisces and historic patterns, ancestral patterns. So the square here may be where you realize that some of your beliefs, which you had originally thought were working for you, maybe they weren't, or you might even discover beliefs underneath your beliefs. I've told this story quite a few times. I used to have this big brown chair in my house, and after I had it for about 6 months, I kind of had this epiphany. Why did I buy that chair? I don't like that chair. I don't like the way it looks. It's so masculine. It takes up too much room. And one day in my meditations, I realized that I bought that chair hoping that a man would come sit in it. My dad, my brother-in-law. I was hoping to create a place where people would want to gather. And yet these particular characters in my life have no interest in gathering with me. I got rid of the chair because the psychology underneath the chair was not authentic to the truth of who I am. And I promptly replaced it with a very loud, bright, yellow patterned chair. So these are the kind of things, these weird, subtle things. Pluto's kind of subtle in its psychology underneath when you pay attention. Okay. So now we have on the May 20th, Mars will go into your 5th house of Leo, making an opposition to Pluto. There'll be an exact opposition at 0 degrees between your 5th house and your 11th house. This is also making a T-square to Jupiter and the North Node in your 2nd house. So here's your ruling planet going into the sign of creation, the sign of creativity, personal pleasure, romance, children. And again, I want to emphasize, for me, squares are these tense conversations between an old patterned part of myself and a new, untested, yet thought out and sort of like baby steps part of myself, evolved part of myself. So I think this is going to be an opportunity to really get brave about what you want to birth in your 11th house matters, using your 5th house energy. Mars in Leo is a good, that's fire and fire. And now this is about really kind of, I think, being brave. And if you are one of these people who feels like your opinion might be differing from traditional schools of thought, allow that Aquarius opposition to create sort of this willingness to innovate, not getting too stuck in something different. I had some trepidations originally about my viewpoint of some of the planets because I got so irritated with everybody always talking about the dark side. I felt like all these astrology people watching were bracing for these transits to do terrible things to them. And I don't believe that's true. I believe the transits are no different than the ocean behind me, the desert over here. It's just a landscape. And as we are conscious, we can walk through these landscapes and use the highest vibration of them to represent the truth of why the soul comes to this dense earthly experience. So that's what this square is going to do. It's going to ask you to be brave in what you find, important. And if it's in your romantic sector, if for some reason you're in a relationship where you've been dating someone and they're okay, but they're not, rocking your world, maybe it's time to just kind of step back, or at least just pause and say, do I need my world rocked? Am I settling, or am I cutting off my own edges to fit into something? A T-square is a very, very, there's a point of focus, and that point of focus is coming at Jupiter and the North Node, expanding what you want. The North Node is a ravenous point that the soul has not completely mastered. It's what it's stretching for, because the South Node is what we come in with, what we believe and how we behave and how we react habitually. So this is powerful. And this influence, while it starts on, or officially Mars moves into Leo on the 20th, we're going to feel it from about the 16th of May until the 28th. So I think this is powerful. On June 2nd, Saturn will be in Pisces, making a trine to Jupiter. And this trine will also be Jupiter and the North Node are hanging out. They're both at 3 degrees now, again, at in your second house. It's really a good time to expand your skills through discipline, through looking at Saturn as your friend. I did a video about Saturn a while back, and I think of Saturn as Coach Boone from the movie Remember the Titans. Somebody, didn't really appreciate the movie reference, but I could not love it more. I think if you really look at Denzel Washington's character, and this is a true story, he looks hard. He looks like he's, taking no prisoners. He looks like he doesn't really care, that all he wants to do is win, and build that in the material. And yet underneath the surface, he is such the hero for these young men who are walking through a very challenging shift in humanity. So that is Saturn to me. So Saturn in Pisces, trining Jupiter here, sextiling Jupiter and the North Node in your second house, and then trining the South Node in Scorpio in your 8th house is like this feeling of coming together with your beliefs and your willingness to expand, seeing your future as a little bit more tangible than maybe it had been before, Taurus, putting it in the earth and getting a bit excited, to be frank. I mean, I think, sometimes I don't know if I'm crazy or I'm just connected to spirit, but there are times when I am going through transits. Usually it's the 3rd time. Like when Saturn was going over my Chiron the first time, not fun. Second time, a little bit better, but still not fun. 3rd time, I had it dialed in and I figured it out and I started to use the higher vibrations. That's why I'm doing this video right now for all the signs individually, so you can look at the houses, look at the environment, look at your opportunities and take advantage of them. Okay, so as I said earlier, Pluto will move back into Capricorn on June 11th. That's in your 10th house of career and public image. So this is very exciting. Again, this is all kind of coming up about Aries using your skills, Aries, using your voice, Aries being brave to let go of your anger and frustration in the story of yesteryear and stepping into today. And Jupiter's been in your house of self, not for the longest period of time, but it's been there and it's been supporting that endeavor. Okay, now we have on the 17th, Saturn is just about to go retrograde. It'll go retrograde the next day, but before it does, on the 17th, Saturn does go retrograde at 7 degrees Pisces. Here's that 7 again, this theme of introspection, of spiritual evolution through taking a more balanced approach at looking at our story, our history, our whole way of being. On the 18th, the retrograde Saturn at 7 degrees Pisces is now making a sextile to Jupiter at 7 degrees Taurus. So I think that I'm only going through spring because I just wanted to kind of give a condensed period of time for you. But this, again, this sextile is a positive aspect, supporting a willingness to look at my history from a spiritual dynamic and then to extract the wisdom of it and recreate what my beliefs are and who I am and where I want to move forward. This is a pivotal time for us all. And it is a time when I think as humanity moves forward, it will be akin to times of great change that moved humanity into a place of better balance and more compassion for one another. And we are the little drops of love that go into that ocean. So as we love on ourselves and we are true to ourselves and our dreams, we are actually helping the collective. So Aries, go for it. Be brave. Let go of your resentment in the way of, does it serve me anymore? Is it moving my story forward? Is it just anchoring me? Because I'm an Aries and I'm a Taurus moon, and I know it's not an easy thing to do, but I got tired of walking in the same story. And then I started to think, whose fault is it now? So this is where Saturn is really going to help us out. And it's going to make us feel like it all matters. And I believe Saturn is my friend. And Saturn is going to continue to foster my growth as a spiritual leader for myself and hopefully for others by example. All right, Aries, I will be doing a new moon video in Pisces, so look for that. And please join me on Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Pacific time, for our weekly angel scopes. I put horoscopes for the algorithm, but this is where we get the angels' advice for traversing the transits ahead. So we'll look at that. Thank you so much. Please like, please subscribe, and please hit that notification bell so you will know when new content comes out. All right, Aries. Have a great spring. See you soon.